I have the privilege of working with students from a very diverse background from in the United States and international students. And one of the challenges I see that's pervasive is the adjustment to the academic writing style. And we're all used to using an informal style in our daily correspondence, but academics requires a specific style of writing. So in this episode of the 10-Minute Teacher, I want to help give some tips and tricks on how to do good academic writing and also make sure that you are writing for clarity. First, let me tell you a few differences between the informal and formal writing styles. So informal, really our target there when we write is family and friends. The formal, we're writing to our professors or colleagues. The informal relies on a colloquial, a very personalized style. The formal is a very formal style, as the name implies, and more impersonal. Informal is fairly simple and straightforward sentence structures, while as the formal is a mix of simple, complex, and compound sentence structures. Informal writing relies on contractions and abbreviations, but in the formal writing, we want to use the full words. And finally, in the informal, you can use empathy and emotion to get your point across. But in formal academic writing, we want to focus on objectivity. So let's look at each of these areas a little more directly. So if we're going to write in a formal and impersonal style, the first thing we need to do is use standard English, not slang or cliches. For example, you'd want to use the word amazing, not totally radical. All right, that's going back a few years, but you guys get the idea. You'd want to use a word like irrelevant, but not no big deal. We want to use standard English and not figures of speech. We'd want to use the word heavy, not that weighs a ton. This is a kind of hyperbole that is not useful in the formal academic writing style. We'd want to use a term like there are many possibilities, not millions of choices. Again, because hyperbole is an exaggeration to make a point, but academic, we want to be more precise. And so using more standard or precise language is a better communication style for this type of writing. We want to use standard English and not metonymy. Metonymy is when you use one word that means something else to represent a whole other thing. So for example, we want to use the word Christians must speak out, not the church must speak out. Now in our informal writing or speaking, we know that the word church stands in place of meaning Christians. But again, formal academic, we want to focus on the more precise and exact meaning of what we're trying to say so that we can assume the reader might know that. Another example, we want to use the president said, not the White House said, because we're speaking specifically about a quote from a person, not the office in which he holds. So in formal and impersonal writing, we want to use standard English, not colloquialisms. Use children, not kids. Use many or several, but not a lot. In our academic writing, we want to avoid the use of the imperative voice. So we'd want to use the phrase refer to table A, not remember table A. The clarity of that direct reference, refer, is what we're looking for in good writing. Now this next one's a big one. We want to avoid the use of first and second person pronouns. I, me, my, we, us, our. Those are the terms that we want to avoid completely in academic style writing. So for example, you want to use in this author's research, not in my research. Or we would want to use this research helps the reader see, not this research helps us to see. We also want to avoid speaking directly to or putting words into the mouth of the readers. Now this is an important one to me because when I'm reading a paper, I don't want the author of that paper telling me what my feelings are or what they should be in response to their writing. And so this can be a real put-off to your reader if they feel like you're trying to tell them what is the right way to understand or perceive or respond to your content. You want to allow them to have their own response, not your response. So we'd want to use one can imagine, not you can imagine. We also want to avoid non-standard dictionary terms. So use a lot as two separate words, not a lot as one word. Use all right as two words, not all right as one word. And you'll find in most dictionaries it gives you non-standard alternatives to the standard spelling or usage. But we want to stick again with the standard dictionary spelling of words. So the next item we want to look at is complex, compound, and simple. These are the three kinds of sentence styles that we want to rely on in our formal academic writing. So to help explain, let me say this. Informal writing relies on short, simple sentences. Short sentences are predominantly used in informal writing, such as blogs or texts or tweets or emails. Informal writing allows the use of incomplete sentences or ellipsis when making points. Now, in contrast, formal writing uses a mix of all of these kinds, simple, complex, and compound. So formal writing requires complete sentences accompanied by standard punctuation. Longer sentences express complex ideas and crucial details that are important for getting your point across, while shorter sentences can help bring focus or emphasis on a specific idea. So this is important because academic does not mean avoiding simple sentences. It means use them with intent so that they can bring focus to a particular point and maybe summarize a longer, more complex idea that you use the compound or complex sentence to bring out. And that's really the key here. Variety keeps the reader engaged, and that's the purpose of your writing. It doesn't matter how good of a point you have. If nobody wants to read it because it's boring, it doesn't matter, again, what your point is. So variety keeps your readers engaged. So let me give a few examples here. A simple sentence has the most basic elements that make it a sentence: a subject, a verb, and a completed thought. So let's go back to old school. I used to read this book to my kids. Here it is. See Dick run. That is the most simple sentence that we can construct. It's got all the key elements. Now let's look at a compound sentence. A compound sentence is made up of two independent clauses or complete sentences connected to one another with a coordinating conjunction. So let's expand on our see Dick run sentence and now say see Dick run fast and watch him jump over the box. Notice that both sides of that sentence, see Dick run fast and watch him jump over the box, could be independent simple sentences. But the word and, our coordinating conjunction, helps them become one compound sentence. So in addition to the simple and compound sentence, we can add to our repertoire of writing the complex sentence. And a complex sentence is made up of an independent clause and one or more dependent clauses connected to it, where a dependent clause is similar to an independent clause or complete sentence, but it lacks one of the elements that would make it a complete sentence. So let's look at a couple of examples. We could say Dick was running fast, but not too fast. So there we're missing a complete part of that independent clause, which makes it rely fully on the first dependent clause to be a full and complete sentence. Here's a second example. Dick was running fast because he loved to jump over boxes. So the second dependent clause is answering something. It's giving us a reason or a purpose for this first part of the sentence, which is the independent clause. So then once you have those three basic sentence styles, you can start to be creative in the way you structure your sentences. For example, there's a periodic sentence. A periodic sentence is used to refer to a complex sentence beginning with the dependent clause and ending with the independent clause. So we can just take our last sentence and switch it around. Because he loves to jump over boxes, Dick was running fast. So now we've put our independent clause first. So with all those examples and the idea that you can start to be creative in your writing, even in a formal structure, here's some tips for good complex sentences. You want to avoid beginning sentences with and, or, but, or other coordinating conjunctions. Now, can you do this? Yes. It's not a hard and fast rule that it should never be done. But generally, you want to try to avoid that in formal academic writing. You can begin sentences with words like because, while, or therefore. Those are good words that can help start sentences and also create good variety in your writing. You also want to be aware of sentence fragments, which are really incomplete sentences or incomplete thoughts. So you can fix a sentence fragment if you make it a dependent clause or a long phrase that follows the main clause. So let me give this example, because I think this is the one that I see a lot in papers and a lot of students struggle with. So you'd want to use Dick loves to jump over boxes when he runs fast. Or when Dick runs fast, he loves to jump over boxes. Those are two good, fully formed sentences. What is not good is to try to turn that complex sentence into two simple sentences, because then you end up with a fragment. Here, when Dick runs fast, period. He loves to jump over boxes, period. Notice when Dick runs fast is not a complete sentence. It's missing an element, and therefore it ends up as a fragment. So this is a good place to pause, take a break, and recap what we've covered so far. In the academic formal style, we know that our audience is our professors and our colleagues. We've covered the formal and personal style, and we've looked at examples of simple, complex, and compound sentences and how each adds a unique quality to your academic writing. Now take a little bit of time, recap, hone your skills, learn how to apply these principles, and in part 2 of this video, we're going to look at the last two elements of informal writing, which are using full words and objectivity. And then we're also going to cover some tips about writing with clarity.